Good evening, everyone. Today is January 12th, 2018. The purpose of this video is to provide you with the tools and framework for making good decisions when it comes to investing in ICOs. There are a few assumptions I'm going to be making as I make this video for my audience. The first is, I assume you know what an ICO is. If you don't know what an ICO is, it is an initial coin offering. And if you don't know what an ICO is beyond that, I recommend you Google it. The second thing is, I assume, well, if you know what an ICO is, I assume you know that ICOs are incredibly high risk. So, when you're participating in these types of investments, you're on your own when it comes to the risk, and of course any reward that might come from that. The third thing is, my assumption is you're here to learn. I'll be out upfront with you. I'm not here to say or promise that this token is gonna make you rich or that token is gonna make you rich. I'm just saying, here's the strategy I used and here's what worked for me. That's it. Okay? So I'm teaching you how to fish. With that said, let's go ahead and get started. So at a high level, what I like to do on from time to time is I like to visit this website here, ICOstats.com, and it's basically a website that shows you how different tokens have done since they have had their ICOs. The one I like, you'll see this menu here. I like to focus on the ROI since ICO, and from here I like to look at what tokens are listed on here. I like to sort it by the most amount of change, because I want to see what the biggest winners are. I like to get a feel for the age of the token so I can see kind of how long it's taken for it to reach that level of growth, and I like to see its ICO price and current price. If you see a price like 0.000, it doesn't mean that the ICO price was 0 cents. It just means that the ICO price was less than 3/100th of a penny or whatever the right decimal place is. I'll just share what I've seen in analyzing this list. In general, what I find is the top performing ICOs tend to be tokens that are used for platforms that support the building of an entire ecosystem. So examples of those tokens are Ethereum, Neo, and Stratus. Okay, and these are what I like to call foundational tokens. So in other words, let's take Ethereum as an example. You can think of Ethereum as like a giant landmass, and that's what Ethereum is. And on it you can build commercial properties, residential properties, and you can have an entire city just grow and flourish from that, with a ton of smaller blockchains on top of that, basically. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about building an ecosystem. In a nutshell, the potential impact is huge. The second biggest kind of winner I tend to see are platforms that are for supporting token exchanges for trading and lending platforms. And then the third biggest type of winner I see are niche platforms. So this might be basically gambling platforms, esports platforms, and so on. So that's when I'm looking at ICOs, that's the way I'm thinking about it in my head. That's how I prioritize where I'm going to put my money first. A second website I like to check out is this website, ICOalert.com. It basically provides a calendar of all the different ICOs that are coming up. Okay? So those are the first areas that I hit up when I'm looking at ICOs. Once I have identified a particular token that I'm interested in, then there are 6 areas that I check about a particular ICO. The first is, I want to know what is the maximum token supply, because the maximum token supply can tell me a little bit about what is the perceived scarcity of this token. The second is, what is the ICO price? The third is, what do market comparables look like? The fourth is, does this token even have a working product? The fifth is, what do the team members, the leaders, and the advisors look like? As in, what is their experience like, and do they have any blockchain experience? The sixth is, what does their source code look like? So those are the 6 areas I tend to look at. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and kind of go through these 6 points using an example. Okay. So the example I'm going to use is Neblio. Neblio is one of my favorite long-term holds. Of course, Ethereum or Ether is my favorite, but this is a very close first. Okay, so Neblio had an ICO back in August, and I think it was around 20 cents a token, and now it's been about 5 months, almost 5 months, and it's nearly $40 a token, and it actually surpassed $60 a token several days ago. So let's look at what Neblio is. Let's go ahead and take a look at what does Neblio's token supply look like. So Neblio's token supply, I mean, you can find it online, anywhere like on CoinMarketCap. And so this is the total supply. So about 13.5 million. The token supply launched with 13 million, and this was published in the ICO details when they released that. Okay, and when I looked at that and I compared it to its market price, I saw it was 20 cents. So something that is comparable to Neblio is Stratus. Okay, so all I got when I was looking at Neblio, I was also looking at what does Stratus's token supply and price look like right now. Okay, Stratus has nearly 100 million tokens in circulation right now. Okay, and the price is almost $20 a token. So Stratus and Neblio are similar, so I consider them to be market comparables. I was considering at the time Neblio to be a superior platform because it supported way more technology stacks and languages than Stratus did, and I thought that Neblio had a much higher potential because it had a lower circulating supply, and just looking at other similar tokens that were priced in the dollars, to me 20 cents seemed like a fair bet. So what we just did just now is we covered the first 3 points of my analysis and strategy. That is looking at max token supply, looking at the ICO price, and looking at basically what do similar tokens look like. And it's always good to pay attention to what the market cap looks like for similar tokens. It gives you an idea for what's the overall potential for an ICO token to enter a market. And a market cap basically tells you what the total size of a token is in the cryptocurrency space. So next thing I did after that was I wanted to see if they had a working product. Okay, so this takes a little bit of Google searching sometimes, but for Neblio, all I had to do was look at their blockchain. Okay, before they even finished their ICO, they had a wallet. I know a wallet doesn't sound like a big deal, but when you have so many other ICOs who don't even have a wallet is actually, it's relatively a great thing for them to have. And I took a look at their sorry, a dry throat. I took a look at their roadmap at the time, and basically, this is where they had their token sale back in the first half of Q3. So this is around the summertime, which is when I got into it. And they had kind of expansion of their team. And then by, first half of Q4, they had their wallets releasing, like additional wallets beyond the ones they already had. And basically, I was following their roadmap fairly closely before buying into their ICO, and I followed well after that. And looking at this token objectively, I found that their development team consistently met or beat deadlines. Okay, and they continue to release useful features and value for the blockchain community. And the nice thing is it's done great, and they haven't even started their marketing campaign launch. So unlike other tokens that try to really get a lot of hype going on beforehand, before they even go public, Neblio didn't do that, so that really says something about how important it is to have some fundamentals in place to have a long-lasting impact, as opposed to just a bunch of hype. Another thing I like to do is I like to check out like what the team looks like, what the advisors look like. Typically, you could find that in like a white paper or roadmap. We already looked at the roadmap, so we could take a look at Neblio's white paper. And I just realized that I can just go to About Us, and that'll probably tell me a little bit about their team. So you can see they have their team listed up here. They've got a quick bio about the different folks running things. I usually like to go ahead and check out their LinkedIn if they have it listed, which they do here. And I like to see I'm basically looking at them as if I'm about to hire them. So I like to see what kind of places have they worked at, what kind of work did they do at those different places. What does their employment tenure look like across the board? Interestingly enough, a large amount of ICOs that I look at are led primarily by many people who actually have no experience running a startup. And from what I recall, I didn't see that these people had extensive experience in running a startup, but they kind of proved me wrong by delivering, basically. So that's something to keep in mind. Sometimes if they have details about their advisors, you can find that information here. So like I can see that they have an advisor here, and as usual, the guy has little to no blockchain experience that they mentioned, which is fine, but for me it's always a bonus if they do. Okay. Sometimes if an ICO is lucky, they'll have somebody like Vitalik Buterin, like one of the founders of Ethereum, being their advisor. For me, seeing somebody who has had an influential position in the blockchain space for several years is always a nice bonus if I see them either on the team or as an advisor. Now, the final area I like to look at is what does their code base look like, okay? And basically that means how frequently are these platforms or these projects updating their code, because that kind of tells me something about how active the development community is, and essentially like how invested they are into improving the platform. So in the example of Neblio, they have their GitHub available, which is their public space where they store their software code. There's two things I like to look for here. The first is I like to look for quantity, okay? Like how recent are the contributions? I mean, today's January 12th, and I see basically they had their last few contributions on January 9th. And for the most part, they do contributions every few days, besides the 2.5 week gap, 3 week gap from Christmas and New Year's. But generally, you'll see like every several days on average, they're making contributions. Okay, I think that's a great thing. I think that's a good sign for a blockchain project and an ICO opportunity. When it comes to quality, I like to get a quick peek into what kind of improvements are they making. I have seen tokens that are questionable, and the majority, well, first off, they barely make updates, and when they make updates, their updates are like, they changed the color of the font, or they made the font a couple sizes bigger. These aren't really all that valuable for a blockchain project, especially in a space that's so much about scaling and performance and all that kind of stuff. So I just don't see how aesthetics are as important. In the case of Neblio, I saw a number. I mean, they have some kind of improvements that I don't think are huge deals, but then they have other ones that are a little bit more important. So, for example, I saw that they have a piece for improving the scaling and performance of their blockchain. For example, one of the commits I saw was around kind of the Merkle, how they manage Merkle block transactions. So I don't know a ton about this. I just know this is an important piece in cryptography. and consensus. But I mean, you don't have to read the code, but you can typically find the comments that they have. So like this particular improvement was about basically a performance improvement. If you've spent enough time in crypto, you know that speed and performance is important. Everybody hates it when a blockchain network gets congested. It becomes expensive to send your transactions, and sometimes you don't see your transaction for days. So this is the kind of high quality commit I like to see, and I like to see a lot of these, okay, and I like to see them relatively frequently. So this is basically an area I recommend checking out for any ICO you're interested in. If an ICO doesn't have its code repository easily available, I'm not saying that's a red flag, but it's definitely a plus to be able to have access to, because even from here you can opt to watch a code repository. You can get updates anytime there are any changes made to the code base. So in a nutshell, that's basically what I look at when I'm looking for ICOs that I think are worth putting money into. So just to reiterate, my favorite kind of ICO are for foundational tokens that are seeking to build or improve entire ecosystems. So examples of those tokens are Ether and Neo. I like to look at, what for an ICO, what does the max token supply look like? What does the ICO price look like? I don't want to be paying a premium for a token that's actually not that rare, right? I also like to look at market comparables. So if there's already a similar token or tokens out there that exist in the market, you can usually get a kind of a feel for what you can expect for the ICO to go to if it is relatively successful. I like to also see if they have a working product. I used to be strict about this, but then I'm learning that almost no ICOs come with working products, and even ICOs that don't have working products, a number of them tend to do well. So I'm pretty flexible on that requirement. Of course, I like to see what the team and its advisors look like. So when you're looking at them, think about it as if you're going to be hiring them for your company, and I think that should give you kind of a good lens to analyze a team and its advisors through. And then of course I look at their code base to see what does the quantity and quality of their updates to their code base look like. Anyways, I know this video was super long. I hope you're able to walk away from it with a better idea on how to approach ICOs. ICOs as a whole are kind of it seems complex, which it is in many ways, but it's not that complex. So I don't expect that I covered everything that could possibly be covered in this video. So if you have any questions, go ahead and comment them in. I love feedback from my audience. If you have other video ideas or requests for videos you want to see about ICOs, let me know. Anyways, thanks for your time, everybody, and have a good evening. Bye-bye.